Welcome, my friends, to the podcast that never ends, where we gather our clan and talk about peace and love in our lives, the difficulties along the journey, and how we rise up. We will experience a little thing I call Kluberty together, find our sweet spot, and planting our seeds to watch them grow in our magic garden. I'm Uncle Dave, and our transformation starts right here. Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today, we're totally going to bring a bat. We're going to bring in Gordon Brodecki. I got to tell you, you meet this guy, he is full pack of energy, full pack of teaching you how to take care of yourself, but also in a deeper way on your mindset, as well as so many different other ways. How you doing this morning, Gordon?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for the awesome introduction. Man, I'm looking forward to this. I was looking forward to this all week long. I was like, man, I can't wait to get on David's podcast and just go at it and talk about whatever we want to talk about. And I said to you, man, you can ask me whatever questions you want to ask me. So just wait, you can wing it. If you have some things set up, then I'm ready for that too.
Yeah, no, we've spoken and we've known each other for a couple of years. And every conversation, like the other night, I met Gordon and he was like, what do you think about football? And I'm like, I don't know where he wants me to go with this. And then we started getting into a conversation about a bunch of different things. What do I think about football? It's like a diamond shaped, but we had talked about a whole bunch of different things. That's what I really enjoy about Gordon is once we go down a road, you can get into very deep conversations, and that's what we're going to do today. So today, I'm really glad. So thank you so much for coming on. And then we're going to start talking about, he has two businesses. They're intertwined in some ways, and some ways they're not. So we'll understand a little bit about Gordon's path, but his businesses are Garage Fitness and Warriors Be Fit. It's all about taking care of yourself and then having that mindset. Because a lot of times, and Gordon will explain it better, but the mindset will then help you take care of your body much better. And I know that for fact from myself. But Gordon, how did you start on this path, this journey? Because you've been doing it for a while. He's also a professional. By the way, he's also a professional bodybuilder. Okay, not just a professional bodybuilder, right? Anybody could be a professional bodybuilder. Give me $5, I'll do it for you. But Gordon is actually a champion. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. What's brought you this path, Gordon?
So I've been in the fitness industry for over 35 years, well, working out myself, 25 years as a business. And I worked for places like Valley Total Fitness, LA Fitness as a personal trainer. But before all that, I started, when you talk about what led me down this path, what it was when I was younger, I loved The Incredible Hulk. I talk about this story quite often. It's one of my favorite stories because it's about my mom. My mom and I would sit there and we would watch The Incredible Hulk. She would put the live action TV series on. I don't remember Lou Ferrigno. Do you remember Lou Ferrigno?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we turn that on. We would sit there and just watch it. And I fell in love with that whole aspect of being strong. When you're a kid, when you're a boy, but you're running, you're jumping, you're playing. And then you see this hulking green monster on the screen that you're like, and you look at it, you're like, I want to be like that. I want to be strong like that. So I'd run around the house. And my mom would just entertain me, and I would pick up the furniture and a lamp, and I would knock it over, but softly. I'm not just throwing it. My mom would be like, "Be careful," and then I would come over, and of course, my mom, being the mother that she is, she's very nurturing. She'd be like, "Hawk doesn't hurt, Mom. Come over and so I give her a big hug and a kiss." And I would make the noises like Hawk loves Mom. So my mom was really good to me. She really nurtured that other side of me, the caring, the loving side of me. And then, of course, there was my father, who was the go-getter. He was the one who had multiple businesses. When you talk about me having a couple different businesses, he worked as a construction worker for Norwood. He was a foreman, and he overseen all the projects, big projects too. And he would come home, and we lived along the water, but in the Chamonix Creek, and before I was even born, he used to dock boats and have slips out there so people could winterize their boats. I was born a little after that, but this just to show you his paths that he went down. And then he ended up getting a license how to fix Chrysler engines, which is a Chrysler engine. If you know what that is, it's on the back of a boat. They're really popular back in the day. So we learned how to fix those. So we got licensed to do that. So people would break. We had a big, huge boat yard. That's literally called. It was called Ed's Boat Yard. That was the name of our location. And then on top of that, one of my other brothers wanted to open a bait and tackle shop. So below, because we were a commercial property, we had 2 stories, and was below our house. We had a bait and tackle shop. I'm sure
Mm.
I don't think I ever told you this story. Tackle shop is, well, like all of us would run the bait and tackle shop. It was like a rite of passage for each kid to run his bait and tackle shop. And we didn't want to do it because we don't go out and play and stuff. So my dad he had Norwood, of course, and he worked his 9 to 5 job. Then he'd come home and he'd fix the lower outboard engines, and then he had the bait and tackle shop. So all those years taught me the work ethic. That's where I got the work ethic from. And like I said, with the nurturing, the caring side from my mother. Well, when you say about my journey, this is where it really got interesting. So my brother Jack used to he used to lift weights. He had a weight bench and everything in the basement. So it was like detached from the garage where the fishing stuff was and all. And it was a little separate room. So we had a back room. And I used to watch him lift weights, and I got so intrigued by it. I wanted to start doing it. So I would just go under his bench press, and I would like try to lift the weights, right? I immediately fell in love with this thing. I remember trying to max out my bench. I wanted to be strong, and I put in 2 and 2 together how to get that look that you see the Incredible Hulk has. So I literally started diving into weight training at the age of 13 years old, and that's where the whole journey started.
Yeah, no, and that sounds excellent. So again, how I take it is how I'm hearing it, because I know you today. Your family is a bunch of entrepreneurs. They not only did dad work a 9 to 5, hustled at that, but he also utilized his skills to what he could do, whatever other ways he could help raise his family, and what he could do to teach his boys really what to do, not only to have that 9 to 5 or some level of 9 to 5, and follow your passions, fixing. So he took that little property and really utilized it, used all his personal resources to do the best that he could do, and then also instill that in you and your brothers.
Oh, 100%. So I'm one of 6. I had one brother I know about that passed away years ago, and he was my one of my oldest brother at the time. So he was like the one I like looked up to, and I remember the day he passed away that I went down and started working out and I just had to put myself. Everybody was at the house. I had my meltdown, but I was like, I'm going to go down and I'm going to take it out on the weights instead. So with the weight training for me, it's always be something I can go to. And I don't know where I would be at without having that part of my life. I could have went down a lot of bad paths. I've seen a lot of people when I was younger, friends, acquaintances, down the drug addiction. And listen, like I've dabbled in things, and started going down the bad path at times. But the one thing that pulled me out was the weight training, it was the health and fitness aspect. And that's what I love to teach other people so they don't have to feel like they're stuck. And that's what I came up with Warriors Be Fit, because it was to help men level up. A lot of time, us men get stuck in this in a rut. Maybe we were at a certain point in our lives in our early 20s that we had the best shape of best body ever. We were just like we were the shit. And then what ended up happening over time, you let that all falls to the wayside. But I'm here to say, I'm 48 years old. You can always come back, and you can always level up, and you can always be a better version of yourself.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what I also like to hear is part of the story, your brother's story, is that you took a negative situation and you knew you had to move your energy differently. I do a lot of talking about energy and healing. And when you're going through something, when you're able to move your energy differently and in a healing way, for you, it was working out. So others is there's a lot of different ways. You can walk, there's so many different ways to move that energy and overcome, and not to get into the eating and the easy things. As you said, you've made some mistakes in your life. You've dabbled in some things. We've all done that on some levels. And excuse me. And that's really the learning lessons, is how when you're getting hit with some really hard things that you can't get away from. It's not about getting away from you weren't going to get away from the death of your brother, the unexpected death of your brother. And but you still knew you had to move on or cope with it the best way. And learning those coping mechanisms are one of the powerful things. What do you do when you work with somebody who needs to manage their coping mechanisms, not only in a physical sense, because sometimes as men, we try to do too much too quick. When I was 20, I used to bench 400, and now I can't lift 100, or whatever the numbers are. How do you help people overcome their current aspects to get them where they need to go?
That's an interesting question. And but how I would answer that, the best answer is that you got to let go of your old self and realize that there's a new self that you're going to become. Because you're not, like, let's be honest, when you were 20, most likely, if you worked out a lot then, and then you stop, then you start back up, or you're going to get weaker. It's just natural, right? So you got to, there might be some things you can't do, but it doesn't mean you can't. For instance, you're not going to go out and play football and try to join like a pro team or something like that, like in your 40s and 50s. But you can still exercise, and you can still do a lot. You can still do mud runs. You still do like triathlons and things like that. You still have a lot left in you, and I would say, and you can reverse a lot of things, right? I've talked about this before with you, and it was about and you heard me say this, and I want to share this with the audience, is that you get to an age around 25, and then your cognitive ability, your memory retention, the memory recall starts declining rapidly after the age of 25. And the only thing that stops it and reverses it is working out with weight training and cardio. They're the only two things. Of course, nutrition has to be implemented in there the proper way so you get the benefits of all that.
Yeah, no, you have to always get the benefits. And but by starting off slow, really, and then building yourself up, that's really where it comes.
Right, 100%. Exactly. If you haven't read the book Atomic Habits, and even in the book I wrote, Unleash the Ultimate You, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Body, which I ended up writing that during the pandemic. And it was supposed to be the 10 fitness tips, because I always wanted to write a book. I worked for Valley Total Fitness. I was telling my client, I'm going to write a book someday. I'm going to write a book someday. I ended up started writing a book. It was interesting how it happened. I was at a conference at one of the events, and I think it was Gorilla Business School, but T. Harv Eckert. So he wrote the Millionaire Mind Intensive, and I bought the whole course. And there was Raymond Aaron on stage talking about writing a book. And he presented he had his presentation, and I just went right up there. I didn't care how much it was going to be to write this book. I was going to write a book. So I went up there, and if you don't know who Raymond Aaron is, he was part of the movie The Secret. If you ever heard of The Secret. So he ended up I ended up buying his program. It's called the 10-10-10 program, and I ended up writing a book through him. And that's what launched Unleash the Ultimate You. But originally it was 10 fitness tips. And when I was talking I also had a person help me write the book. When I was talking to her on the other end, we're sitting there talking, and every week we would talk. Sit there, we talk for about a half an hour to about an hour. And I'd have a cup of coffee right before we would start talking. I was just like explode. It was like word vomit each chapter, but like good word vomit, like a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, no, there's a huge value in that, and that when I teach people how to write books, I talk about writing down the bones. We all call it something different, but you just got to write. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about that the story doesn't make sense. Write it from your heart, and then it really builds into something that you can't imagine when you put it all together.
Yeah, 100%. And what happened was just like you said, every week we would just write it out, and then we started organizing the chapters. And she said to me, you know what? You ever think about changing the title? I'm like, yeah, it just seems like we're not talking about tips. We're not talking about like a workout program. We're talking about what do you need to do to shift that in your mindset. And so I changed the book to Unleash the Ultimate You. And the subtitle was change your mindset, change your body, change your mindset, right? Those two things intertwine, no matter what order you put that in. So they're one of the same. A lot of times we want to separate the body from the mind, but the mind is a body. If your gut isn't healed, if you aren't doing things properly in your body, it's going to affect you outwardly. It's going to way you emotionally show up and the way you feel.
No, for sure. We're all one, and that's the important part. Is our mind, body, and soul is what I say. Because you have to have that spiritual part. That doesn't mean you have to be tied to a religion, but you have to have that spiritual piece that you're in touch with the universe. Because if not, I believe you're incomplete. So just by having those connections, really, because then you start feeling it in other people. You could feel who's maybe not aligned even within themselves. And in the work that I do, that really helps me help figures out exactly where they're stuck and how to move them on differently in terms of getting their stories, getting their books, or having a podcast. You need to know who you are to really put yourself out there in the right way and be congruent to who you are. Don't be one person on screen, and then when you get off, you're an asshole. That's really what it is. That's one of the things that I've always respected about you. You and I just always somehow connect, no matter how big the room is. We'll just all of a sudden show you. It's like a magnet. Like eventually it works together, and boom. and it's great.
Yeah, 100%. Every time I see you, man, I had like a light bulb. I see you, and I just grab. I enjoy your company, and it's just awesome when you have that energy. And you're talking about energy, and we're all created from energy. I didn't understand this when I was younger because you don't think about it that way, like energy, like a light bulb energy. Like actually, you are. If you were to, I don't know if you ever seen that one stick. I might have it in my drawer somewhere where you touch one side, the other
Yep,
side.
I have that stick. Yeah, yeah. No, and it is. We're all connected. The many times I've used it, people are like, "What the hell is he doing?" And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh, then." And just recently, I did it, and somebody had rubber gloves on, and it didn't work. So I said, "Could you please take off your gloves?" I go, and how I took that to that next level is saying we're all connected. Don't leave any boundaries. So that's
Right.
why when you and I talked, so again, we'll go back to that question. When you said, "What do you think about football?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, I could go down so many different paths. Being part Jet fan and Giant fan, I could tell you, oh, football sucks. It was brutal this year. But I also am a 49er fan for different reasons. So I can tell you, man, this is one of the greatest seasons I've lived. And we went down completely. We didn't even talk about either of those teams. And we talked about a whole bunch of other things, which is
Yeah,
where
that's
we,
the cool thing, man. Like when you get together and you have a good connection with somebody and you enjoy their company. It's not doesn't have to always some people are just like transactional, right? We know people like that. I'm
yep.
sure you hit people
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
sure.
The only time they're talking to you is if there's some kind of transaction happening. And I really am based around building relationships first, and then those transactions happen later.
Well, I think that's the most important part is not make everything transactional. I'm sure social media wise, you get a thousand requests every day. Hey, Gordon, I love what you're doing. I'd love to work with you. And they give you a whole list of what they can do for you. And they haven't looked at your, like the other day, I had somebody who's like, hey, I could teach you NLP. I'm like, yeah, I'm an NLP practitioner. I use that among the tools that I use. You don't even spend the time to figure out who I am. You just want to tell me what I'm going to be, what you could do for me. And I had a person who told me, hey, I can help you write a book. I'm like, do you not pay attention or even just do a quick Google search? If you're good, a cold call, yeah, it takes that extra second, but it might help you. And I said, I'd never work with you. I go, you don't even understand it. Oh, but I'm doing this. I'm like, you don't understand. It's only about you. And if it's about you, then it's not going to, it's transactional and it's not something that I pursue. I want to pursue.
Oh, yeah. You just named social media in a nutshell. It has turned into something that is good and bad, right? It's a double-edged sword.
Sure.
You need social media is really, I say you need it there if you really want to grow your business in today's day and age. If you want to grow any business, you're going to need social media. When people say they don't want to be on social media, I say, good luck growing your business because it's going to be really hard. You got to be on there some way, shape, and form. But at the same time, you have a lot of the solicitors, people who reach out. I get friend requests from people all day long no, I don't, they're probably bots. Some of them, most of them, probably bots. And then a lot of them are they want to sell you something. Everybody wants to sell you a program. And it's not to like bash anybody who's young, who's really getting themselves in the game, but
They need to
you're gonna
learn. I'm not. That's why I don't bash anybody. I'm just like, hey, that's not how I pursue business. So it's
right,
okay. And if it
right.
works for you, great, go for it. Probably I could do things differently also the way that I'm doing things. But I think social media, the value really comes to really getting yourself out there and keeping your message. Because once they see your message, they see your heart. And I think that's more important. Now, because I know you let people see your heart all the time. You really wear your heart on your sleeve. And that's
Thank
one
you.
of the things I respect about you.
Thank you. That's the segues into something I'm going to be talking about is your emotion, right? We talked about this already that you want to create a relationship. And when I get to know somebody, I don't work with somebody if I don't really get to know them a little bit on some
Mhm.
type of level.
Sure.
And that's why when all these people throw stuff at me and they want me to work with them, I have coaches, right? I have coaches, but these are people I trust. It's a relationship. My marketing agency, my mock marketing agency by Michael Gabriel, I've been working with him for 4 or 5 years, or maybe more than that now. Right. Like when I build a relationship with somebody, I stick with that person and I really try to like Christoph's my speaking coach. I have Christoph and then JR is one of my coaches too, help me build Warriors Be Fit and we partner together on that. So there's a lot of synergy and with other people, but then like that I create the relationship and I want to maintain that. And they're the people I work with. I just don't work like when people work with me, like I have one client who's with me for over 20 something years. And
That's
like
awesome.
she's free to not train and go, and she knows what to do, but there's a relationship built there where she like plus it gets her to go to the gym, and she said she wouldn't do it otherwise. It wasn't from some like she paying for the accountability and this coming and training, and that's it. And some people just that's what's important, creating relationships, and you'll have long lasting friendships, relationships, and business.
Yeah, I think that's the word that I was going to look for you is accountability. So when you have a client going for a long time, it's really your accountability. That's why when I tell clients, "Hey, I don't if we're working together in a year, I'm not doing my job if we're working on the same subject. If we're doing something else and we expand our scope of what we want to work together, that's a different story." But you love the talking about accountability and accountability partners.
Oh, 100%. I came up with an acronym. Like I said, we spelled it. I said, write this down. And when I was speaking last time, I said, awesome. I was like, we spell it differently in Philly. We do it a little differently.
Yeah.
AHSUM. And the accountability part, the A stands for accountability. People who have accountability partners who show up every day are 95% more likely to hit their goals when they have somebody that shows up for them when you guys get together. 95, that's
Yep.
huge. That's why when you get a trainer or anybody, a coach, you're more likely to hit your goal or stay on target. So you're like most people who it's funny because it's a total opposite. If you don't have somebody holding you accountable, you don't show up. People who come to the gym when they don't get training, they'll I made a joke about this. I made a video where it was like the New Year's resolution. Then a month later, there's nobody there at the gym.
Yep.
And that's I worked in the finish like I worked at gyms for 25 years, like I said, and I would see this every year. I knew exactly what like
Yeah.
verbatim. You can see it like just they would come in and all of a sudden like this dwindle away by February, mid-February,
Yep.
March, they're gone.
Yeah,
Right?
statistically, by February 1st, most people have given up their New Year's resolution. So that's where they also see the short sight, right? So they think that they're going to fix all a year's problems in less than a month. That's where the consistency is. And I'm sure that ties into your accountability piece.
100%. So you're building this accountability, and then the H stands for habits, right? You build out habits,
Mhm.
you're more likely to hit your goals. Habits are highly important. Habit stacking is highly important. I'm not going to get into all that here, but that's a whole subject I could talk about by itself. I presented just a whole presentation over half an hour just talking about how to build habits and the proper way to do that. So habits are highly important. Look into how to do that. In my book, I talk about doing that, making small little changes, starting small, just getting yourself your foot in the door, get yourself in the gym, not even worried about how much weight you're lifting or the proper routine. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just get yourself just acquainted with the gym, acquainted with being in that environment, because then the environment will help you change too. So that's what I talked about. And I say, awesome, right? The sum of the people that you're around. That's super highly important, right? And then the S itself stands for struggle. You want to embrace the struggle, realizing that you're going to have pitfalls along the way. You're going to struggle a little bit. Everybody suffers. We all suffer one way or another. There's going to be suffering happen to you. You're a human being, right? It's how do you handle the suffering and through the struggle, and that's what you do is you show up each and every day, right? But the U stands for yourself, and that's how you really embrace the struggle by taking care of yourself first, by being the you being number one. When people talk about the F's, the most important thing, it was it faith, family, fun, and friends. Another F is
Yep.
thrown in there, but you barely ever hear fitness being number one. Maybe fitness is thrown in there, but it's never number one. And I believe if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So being fitness is number one for me. And fitness doesn't just mean physical; it also means taking care of yourself mentally too. So fitness being number one, and all those other things will fall into place. Everything else, then you can nurture if you're a faith, if you believe in whatever, you can nurture that, right? You can nurture the family, you can nurture your friendships. So all those things, and then you can have the fun. You can't have fun if you're unhealthy, right? So
Sure.
these are the steps for me. And then the last one, when you create all these things, the M stands for mastery. You create mastery when you complete all these things and you constantly do them. Listen, you're going to constantly be cycling through these things all the time anyway. It's not like all of a sudden it's going to one day I arrived, I'm there, I'm at the level. No, it's forever a process.
And it's consistent growth. It takes you to that next level. Every time you go, you master something, you then go to the next level. You keep getting better, right? Michelangelo, as he was building, he didn't just go, "Oh, this is perfect" at the beginning. Even some of his masterpieces, the stories go that he kept on working on it even after he showed it. He saw something else that he wanted to do something special. And that's the part of what we have to treat ourselves as, that statue, as that idea of constant improvement. You got to dust, right? After you clean your house, at one point, you got to be like, all right, go back to the beginning. And we learn our shortcuts in life, in leveling up ourselves, up leveling ourselves in so many different ways.
Yeah, what you just said there is you clean your house. You don't clean your house just once, right? You keep showing up and cleaning your house as often as you need to clean it and to maintain it. Same thing with your body, same thing with your mind. You got to constantly do the practices that help you move forward and keep you leveling up. Like there's going to be times, there's going to be down times, but there's also be the times where you want to really put that energy in, like meditation. Some people meditate. Not everybody meditates, but that's a good practice to do for your mind, right? Reading's another one. Working out, of course, we know that already helps out with your cognitive ability and everything, right? So these are all things you want to do and implement in your life. And as you do this, it's not going to, there's a book out there called The Compound Effect. There's another book you can pick up if you never read it. Really good book. I liked it because it really dives into what would happen. They took three different people and they took different scenarios and they showed them over a period of time from the beginning to where they're at 5 years later. And it was one person, I think they had really bad habits. I know they did, I think. And then the other person had the same habits. And that one person like did these small little changes, just little things. The person who made the small little changes lost weight, had a better paying job, and so forth. The person who was going down the rabbit hole, I think it was like whatever it was, maybe drinking every day or here and there, it declined. And the person that stayed the same, I think this is my thought process. If you're staying the same, you're not growing, you're dying, right? So the person who
Sure.
stayed the same, nothing happened. And you know what happens when you stay the same or you're at a standstill? You're like, you actually decline too. In my beliefs, I've seen it. So
Yeah, you're either
leveling up,
living or you're dying.
right,
That's really what it comes
exactly,
down.
exactly. So it's there's little things, and that dude lost like 40 something pounds in 5 years. Like I said, better paying job and everything, just by making small little changes. We're so worried about making these massive changes because something will hit us. Like everybody has it, right? You have that aha moment, like that worry moment, that anxiety moment. Oh my God, my life is falling apart. I got to do this now. And all of a sudden, that's where that all of a sudden that now it like just comes out of nowhere, like a rush and this heat. Like I've had it before, so I know what it feels like. I know I can talk about this. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going. This is it. This is it. Today's the day. Today's the day. I changed my life. And then what happens? Usually it starts going backwards, and then there's that same feeling that you had before goes away because all that rush and all that anxiety, and then you want to try something else. And that's where shiny object syndrome comes in. That's what people with diets. Why do you think there's so many different diets out there? Because people jump from one to another. Somebody creates it. Somebody out there knows that somebody else is going to be go attached to that diet, especially if like they want to make a change because the other diets didn't work. And it's really simple. You can really simplify the way you eat if you understand the principles behind it and how to implement them. And that's why I teach a lot of people too. It's longevity in the way of being healthy, not just let's get ready for this or get ready for that. And then what do I do afterwards? Can I go back to eating the way I was before? And I'm like, it's not about going back to the way you eat before. It's about implementing what you eat, how you do life now. And can consistently show up for yourself and keep that change, but in small ways, not just big, massive change all the time.
Yep. No, that's awesome. Yeah. I am really glad that you're enjoying the show, and I hope you follow us on all the podcast hosting sites, as well as Facebook, Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat, or you can follow me, Uncle Dave, David Shemetsky, at Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, and www.davidshemetsky.com. I also would enjoy for you to contact me if you want to just have some feedback. You need somebody to talk to at peacelovebringabat@gmail.com. Love to hear your feedback. Thanks. So what are some of the resources that you personally use or you try to instill in your clients, you offer to your clients? Besides,
Well, yes, I create meal. Of course, I make meal plans. I specialize, tailored towards them. I also a workout program according to them, what kind of equipment they have, if they're working in home, if they have a gym membership. These are things that can implement what they like, what they don't like. The thing about fitness is you got to really dive into somebody's mentality, what they like and don't like. Because if they don't like something, now you shouldn't do things and lean into the things you don't like. because it does help your mind grow in certain
Hmm.
ways. Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about leaning into things and doing things you don't want to do all the time. And he said it's called the anterior mid cingulate cortex, a part of your brain that grows when you lean into something that's hard to do. Yes, you want to do that. But if you're doing it to the point where you just feel exhausted and it's not working for you and you just want to give up all the time, then that's not really going to work for you. You're going to stop doing it. And you're not going to do something you hate, really truly hate. It's like having I don't know, like a horrible job that you just want to get out of. Who wants to do that? You want to enjoy it in some type of level, right? So you can make it enjoyable by adding things and stacking things within it. And I heard this, and I'd like this a lot. Okay, you go to the gym, and what do you reward yourself with? Now, I'm not saying reward yourself with a chocolate cake or anything, but maybe a really good protein shake, or you go to this one coffee shop afterwards, or whatever it is, or stack with
Well,
something.
there's lots of little ways to do that. And don't only think about the new car. Like when you're in a business, think about the little things along the way. I read a book one time called Fish Tales. It's a really popular, it's about the Seattle fish market. And people were like, how are these guys happy? They smell because you're dealing with fish. Not, they're really healthy people. How do they love it? And then they started interviewing them and they just enjoyed, they embraced themselves. They dove themselves into what they're doing. And that I think when I talk to people, and I'm sure you do the same, embrace. It doesn't have to be just because you're lifting higher, you're in better shape now. That doesn't mean, again, rear view mirror is smaller than the windshield. I keep saying this, but it really is true how we focus and move forward and start embracing all the things in our lives. The good things. That's why every morning I say thank you for getting up. That's how I start my day. And as I'm going to sleep, I say my gratitudes to say just thank you for getting me through the day. Even if the day sucked, I'm like, thank you for getting me through the day. Not everybody gets through our days, as you quite know. So how do you get through your days when you're not feeling Gordon shape? You're just feeling like a regular person, not
Oh,
the
my
hero that
regular
you are.
person. So I took a week off from training last week because I went away, and I haven't given usually I like to take off a week or so every 12 weeks to about almost 3 months. And it was long overdue. So I took that week off and I came back and I had a really good leg workout, up body, leg workout the next day, and then an arm workout yesterday. By the end of the week, I'm just like, I'm beat. I can barely, I'm like sore. I don't really usually get sore. That's the sore
Mhm.
anymore. But if you take some time off, like I'm sore. So you're like, how do you get like through those kind of days? And you just get up and you just keep moving and you just you just put one foot in front of the other. And it's like one of those days where you're like, oh man, I gotta make it through this day. What I always realize is that there's always going to be a better days. As long as you can wake up another day, there's a possibility and a chance that there's going to be another day that's better for you. And I think when you talked about embracing things, you might miss the mark that day. You might feel like you didn't accomplish everything you wanted to accomplish on your list. And that happens sometimes. But what I really like to do is just organize things. And if you stay organized by scheduling things in your schedule, by really attacking the hardest things first, then usually those days are better than not. And that's the part of the compound effect I told you about, and
Mhm.
about making those small little changes, just doing something small that day, and which will every day's not going to be the best. So here, I heard something pretty interesting. I think you'll like this. You have, when you sleep at night, you have there's different levels to it.
Mhm.
Like you got
Sure.
your REM sleep, your data, and all that stuff, and you go through this whole process, right? They don't talk about the daytime. There's no names for things throughout the days or laws throughout your day. When you wake up, your cortisol level spikes, for instance. It's supposed to, and it's actually normal. But if it doesn't at night, then there's something off. That means you're going to have a rest, like you're going to be tossing and turning when you sleep. So there's things like, and that's why getting up in the morning, get out in the sun immediately is really important. They don't think about that anymore. Some people just get behind a computer and they're in their house all day. I think getting out in front of the sun helps out with their studies showing it. They raise your testosterone levels 69%. It helps out with your mood, your dopamine levels. It resets your circadian rhythm. So getting out in the sun for about 30 minutes a day is really important. And doing that first thing as early as you can possibly do it before you do anything else helps reset that. Yes, you're going to have the parts of the days that are down, and just accept that's part of the day, and it's not a big deal, right? Understand that not every part of your day is going to be just magnificent, or parts of your maybe parts of your week, and you're going to have days that are just not so great days.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what it is just keep moving that energy is exactly how we started this episode, is just moving our energy. So when you're not feeling well, it's okay to feel it, feel the feels, but don't live in it and really attach yourself to those negative feelings. Find a way, and there's so many different ways. Working out is great. Lifting is great. There's so many different ways to move yourself into a better chemistry, the body chemistry, the brain soup, what I call it. And that's what we need to do, is just keep moving forward and keep pushing ourselves in a way that works for us.
Yeah. Maybe think of this because we're talking about lifting weights and it ties everything ties in. If you want, say, how old are you? 55 right now? Is that
I'm
what you said?
55. Yep, I'm old.
55. If you,
I
okay,
feel great.
if you had another person that was 55 standing next to you and you worked out and they didn't, they're 50% more likely for them to die from something, all-cause mortality, than you are.
Mhm.
50% more if you
Yeah.
work out. Now, if you work out, you're literally, it's a fountain of youth. That's what I call it, the fountain of youth.
Yeah, that's why I've taken care. And people are like, "You're not 55." I go, "I swear to you, I am. I believe me, I am." But no, and it really is what you also obtain what you focus on. I have plenty of friends that I look at and I'm like, they look much older than I am, and they're younger. And it's not about the grays. It's more than the grays. That's just biological. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there's the mindset. I'm pretty happy. I got my mullet and everything, and everybody's like, dude, you can't be 55. And I'm like, believe me, I am. I got the birth certificate and the scars to prove it. But I really work hard. During the pandemic, I really worked hard on myself. I probably worked harder on myself than I had ever done in my life. I didn't know all the little places that I needed to hit. And I know I'm not there yet, right? There is no finish line. That's the trick I want to tell to people. There is no finish line. You know what the finish line is? When they put you in that box. That's your finish line. Up until that moment, you can grow through anything you want.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of time we have something that moves us or why we do something.
Sure.
And I talked about being your who. I think the why is the who. But even if it's just the why, even if you want to talk about the why, we always, maybe there's something that happened in your life that is, that you're like, I'm never letting that happen again. And that's your reason that you get up and you do what you do every day. Like, and we can use like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant as an
Mhm.
example, right? Those guys, maybe when they were younger, they weren't like, I don't think Michael Jordan even made one of the team. I forget what happened,
Yeah,
but
his high
basically,
school team. Michael Jordan, one of arguably the greatest basketball players ever, did not make his high school team. And he went home. Kobe also. Kobe was bouncing around from team to team because his dad was in the military. And I want to thank everybody who is in the military or has family in the military. But Kobe kept on pushing himself, and until he found Shaq. These are some of the greats of the game, and the stories all along. Bill Russell might have made all his teams, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar might have made all his teams, but he still had to work at it. There's that
right,
point with Kareem, he could have given up his career, but he wanted to push himself to do better, and that's when he really dove into martial arts and that Eastern philosophy to heal his mind, to align with his body, and he knew what his soul meant. In other years, where when he was younger, he didn't.
yeah. So they all had different whys, right? But they all had a why they wanted to do it. Like you just said that they overcame adversity, and probably one of it was like, screw those people. I didn't make the team. I'm going to be the best. But the one thing we got to do, and it really will help you out, is not being stuck in one why. You can't. Once you were the kid who became wealthy because everybody said you couldn't do it, and then you did it. What is your why then? You can't attach yourself to the same why anymore.
Right.
It's rappers who rap about the hard life and don't have the hard life anymore. What are they have to rap about now? But what's your
Well,
why do you
well,
get up
that's
and
where they
do
have to get creative, and that's why when you look at even any sort of music, you watch somebody's career versus the same stuff that they're talking about. They're talking about that. Even Taylor Swift, we'll go to Taylor Swift because everybody has to mention Taylor Swift at this point. She had every relationship, whatever her perspective is. I'm not going to dive in and analyze this stuff. The people who've started, you start maybe not so good, but by working your craft and learning your craft, you take it to that next level. No matter what, rappers. Remember, we laugh about Will Smith started as rapping, right? The Fresh Prince was a character he created, and now a lot of people don't even remember the Fresh Prince. They might be like, They might say,
Yeah.
hey, that's somebody different. But you start out, and who you start the journey is should not be where you are now. That's why when I
Yes.
say to people, I'm sure the same thing with you, Gordon. You're not the same person you were last year. You
Oh
didn't waste
no.
a year. You grew. You fine-tuned. You're again Michelangelo. You polished off areas that you needed to polish off because you knew that life is going to continue to go and continue to grow as well as yourself.
Exactly. Like, I'm not the same person mentally or physically.
Right.
And being physically, I had a lot of injuries years ago, a lot of injuries. And I learned how to rehabilitate them and learned what to do and teach others how to do it properly. I'll watch somebody in the gym and I'll just be like, ooh, oh man, they're doing that wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. And I walked up to kids, younger, in their 20s and stuff. I call them kids, they're not kids anymore. But then I walk up to them and I would help them out with their form. And I'm very cordial with it. I'm very careful how I approach people because I want to just approach people and just be a know-it-all. But there's a way to do it. Hey guys, oh, I see you're doing a better row. I gotta be really careful with that. The way you're doing that could really, the way you're rounding your back and that. I was like, I've herniated disc. And I just tell my story really quickly? And I just say, this is what could happen to you. And you don't want to be there. You don't trust me. You don't want herniated disc. You don't want to tear your rotator cuffs. You don't want knee problems. You know, everything you could have done, I've like pretty much done. Because I pushed myself. That David Goggins mentality I had. I want to keep going through injuries and everything. But that's not going to help you out when you get older. That's what I love David Goggins. I just don't think it's really right, the right mindset for longevity.
Yeah, no, I think that's what you have to do is figure out what's best for you and also know when to push, when to not. It's like driving, when to hit that gas pedal and when to ease off a little bit and know that it's okay. Again, while it's okay to have role models and heroes to you want to aspire to, your mission and your journey is much different than anybody else's journey. So you don't have to compare. I can't be Gordon, can't be me, which I'm sure he's happy about. It's really one of those things of well, we have to just accept it. Now, we're getting close to the end of the episode, and I always like to make sure. So we've talked a little bit about Gordon's business, so we're definitely going to put the show links and everything in the description. But I also, so Gordon, what's one message you'd love to people to understand, either about you or about the work that you do?
One of the most important messages I tell people is that, like making those small little changes, it's not sexy. We want to make everything to be sexy and package this perfectly and this do this and your life will be perfect. And that's not really how it works. Even even successful people, most successful people, they can tell you how they got there, but I'm sure as hell they didn't know exactly how they were going to get there.
Hmm.
Right.
Sure.
They might give you their formula and there is some things to show you how to get to certain spots but there is no exact formula. There is adjusting along the way, making small little changes, and then being flexible with with your mindset, meaning allow it to ebb and flow, but at the same time keep pushing yourself a little bit more and growing in the right direction. And that could be done through we talk about training. It can be done through making programs up, but done through nutrition. It can be done through studying and reading and so forth. I read a quote and I really like it. I actually want to bring it up, but I don't want to misquote it. And this is, you told me, you just asked me that question, what do you think is really important? And not just what's important, but also what I think is what happens to us a lot of time as we get older. And this quote was like, I was like, oh man, I got to write this down. I love quotes, by the way.
Yeah, I
And
think quotes are really powerful. That's how I actually, social media wise, that's what I've been doing is I've been using somebody's quotes and then I write a little bit afterwards or a lot actually afterwards. And you either read it or you don't. I'm really cool with it. I'm a lot of times I'm really doing it for myself because I remind myself a lot of the things that I'll find a quote and then I'll sit on it and meditate. That's the one thing. So right now physically I'm not where I would like to be, but I haven't focused on that, which is something that I need to improve on. I don't say that I'm perfect and be like me, but I'm really great on my touching into my spiritual side and my mental side. So my mental side, I don't feel I feel I'm as strong as I've ever been, but my physical side now, especially stepping away from corporate America, I'm turning this into a new. I'm not, I spend an hour a day now just to get myself in shape. I go back into my routine because during the pandemic, not only was I writing, I was in the best shape of my life, and then at one
right.
point I allowed somebody to get into I allowed the water to get into my boat, and I stopped my routine. So now I'm like, I know I have to struggle a little bit more during a transition, that I'm using again the physical aspects of it. So I'd love to hear the quote.
Right. Oh, yeah, I'm listening to you. I'm just thinking, I know a guy who can help you out with all that.
Yeah. Oh, do you? Okay. You know a guy. Yeah, I know a guy.
The quote, though. So I have a bunch of quotes. Like this is like all these quotes, but the quote that really stuck with me and it made me think, and I heard it the other day, I think it was Peter Attia was talking about it. And he said, aging is the progressive pursuit of comfort. So what's that mean? It means as we get older, we just seek out comfort. And we do that more and more as we get older. And we got to step into things that are uncomfortable for us to keep growing. And if you remember that, then you're nothing else. And that's the most important thing, is that you got to get up and do things when you don't want to do them. Like take the walk in the cold weather sometimes, right? Get out when you don't like, it's not always going to be comfortable. And we're always chasing that. It's nice to have comfort. Comfort's great, but to pursue it all the time, that's how you become lazy. That's how you step and falling back into bad habits.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny that you mention it, because that's exactly why I'm pushing myself as much, because my friend passed away at 55 unexpectedly. And then my dad retired at 55. And then a year later, he took a stroke. He what's that stagnant lifestyle. And I had a great uncle who did that, and all these people. And then I also know two amazing beings who pushed themselves into their 80s, still going out, still doing things. And that's what I aspire to do. I aspire to keep pushing myself in a million different ways, because that's what's going to keep my mind active. And genetics are genetics. I still might have the poor genetics that I've been given, but I'm going to utilize everything that I could possibly do. And I just want to, we're going to wrap up the episode. So I really thank you so much for leaving us with that, because I think comfort is great, but we can pick and choose when we want to be comfort, but we should always push ourselves and continue our growth. So thank you
Right.
so much.
Thank
You want to
you.
say something,
Thank you. I
Jordan?
do. I do want to just elaborate on something. You said something, and it really this made me think. And I want to reframe the way you said what you just said. You said I have poor genetics, and that's a lot of it. A lot of us think there's a negative thing we add to maybe our genetics or whatever it is. Maybe I'm not tall, or I'm too short, or I'm too this and too that. And you could reframe that. Like your genetics, you think are poor, but you're walking, you're talking, you're thinking, and you could look at that and twist it in a positive way
Oh, for sure.
where look at this. You can look at it as good or bad, right? Albert Einstein says that, right? He said you can look at the world as great or evil, and
Mhm.
it is what you ever think it is. And the same thing with your genetics. You
Mhm.
can think of it that way, but I think more people, and listen, I catch myself doing the same thing. I'm just calling it out because I just noticed it, and I think anybody out there can reframe the way they think and don't use genetics as an
Not at all.
excuse and just step into it. I could be the best version of myself. And yeah, you're not going to be an NBA superstar, right? You're like genetics not going to take you there, but genetically, you have a lot of room for growth when it comes to whatever you want to do physically and mentally.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm not, white men can't jump. So I'm using my genetics. So what I was saying is I also see what genetics, if I stayed in my comfort zone, and what that looks like, because I have role models at that. And then I also have role models that genetically I'm not tied to, but role models who I see going out there in their 80s, still riding a motorcycle, still was lifting weights. One of my grandfather-in-law, Pop Up, used to, he had passed in his 90s, but in his 70s and 80s he was still working, and they told him to slow down. He goes, I work out every day. He had these little 5 pound weights that every day he would lift up, and for an 80 plus gentleman, really in great shape. And that's what we want to do, is just keep pushing ourselves no matter what. So genetics is one part of who we are, but it's also how you use it. So Michael Jordan's kids, and we'll go back to Michael Jordan, and then we'll round up the episode. Michael Jordan's kids are not professional basketball players. They have obviously the genetics to be a great basketball player. They're probably pretty good because of the work that their father instilled in them, much like your dad. And that's how we'll wrap it up, is your dad instilled in you not only to work hard, whatever you're doing, love what you're doing, and then use all your resources. So not he was a handy person. So he knew not only in his day job how to be a foreman, but then he built this repair shop for the boats that it would be in his property that was right off the water. Taught his kids. He instilled in his kids to keep pushing themselves. Your brother opened the fish and tackle shop, and then you all learned how to do that. It's skills. Again, we'll end it with, hey, you got to always teach people how to fish because that teaches them how to eat. Thus, don't bring fish and put it on a plate.
And yeah, so if anybody wants to find me, if anybody wants any help, you can find me and set up an appointment on garagefitnesstrainer.com. And what I'll do, anybody who reaches out and emails me, what I'll do is I want to give a giveaway, a 21-day challenge for anybody who wants to lose 10 to 15 pounds in the next 21 days. I have a program for that for anybody who wants to build some muscle and lose weight at the same time. So just reach out to me, go garagefitnesstrainer.com, and you can get me through that. You can set up an appointment also, a 15-minute call with me, and that'll be complimentary too, on top of the 21-day challenge I'll give you that will help you lose 10 to 15 pounds and build some muscle. And that's my giveaway. I also have Warriors Be Fit. You guys can go on to www.warriorsbefit.com and check out what that's about. And that's help men level up, become the best version of themselves through health, fitness, nutrition, financially, and just through emotionally too. Because a lot of the time we think we need to suppress our emotions. When I'm not saying we're not going to sit there, it's not about just crying or anything like that, not shedding tears. It's about understanding your emotions and growing through them.
All right, that's awesome. And thank you so much, Gordon. As always, to share your wisdom. I really appreciate it. Share your part of your story. And I would definitely recommend everybody to contact Gordon and get to know him a little bit better. And that's really the real connection. And for everybody, as always, when we end an episode, I want you to find that peace and love in your life. And when you're bringing a bat, bring that awesome thought. Always keep your mind and go swing for the fences, hit your sweet spot, whatever that is for you, and knock it out of the park. Good luck, everybody. God bless. Well, my friends, today's journey has come to a close. I hope the seeds of peace and love continue to grow for each one of you. Remember, the peace and love surround you that will assist you to rise again. And don't forget to bring a bat for what you believe in. Namaste.